So yeah, Eurasia mining. It's actually the oldest resource stock on AIM, and it was founded by some Australian resource professionals back in '95. Floated in '98 and initially was focused on gold in Russia. We switched focus to PGMs in the 2000s, and we have had a pretty good history since then. So we've made two of our own discoveries, and we have brought them through from discovery through resource definition and permitting to, in the case of West Kittlem mining, so this is our West Kittlem wash plant, as we refer to it, operating in July 2018. This really neat, doesn't look very neat, but it's actually very small and compact and cost-efficient unit. Produced 5,300 ounces of platinum, raw platinum this year, so that's really good production for us at our first mine. Meanwhile, Mancha Tundra is a much larger project, 1.9 million ounces in hard rock, 2 open pits on Kola Peninsula, and we have seen that through from discovery to 30 kilometers of drilling and resource definition, and now permitting. It recently got its final mine permit from Dmitry Medvedev, Prime Minister, on 20th November this year, just a couple of weeks ago. So that's our disclaimer. This would normally be given by Christian, the Executive Chairman, and he's in Ekaterinburg at the moment, attending to various items that we'll probably touch on during the presentation. A huge amount of experience on the board and some major shareholders also. But as the company is progressing into mining now and expanding, we are actually looking at several new appointments to the board. So that's how our projects lie within Russia. Big project is Mancha Tundra, 1.9 million ounces. We refer to it as a company maker. That's in the Kola Peninsula in far northwest of Russia. And the important thing is that the mine is fully permitted but fully financed as well through construction. We have an EPC contract in place with a company called Sino Steel, a semi-state or a state-owned company in China that's focused on iron ore developments and other base metals like nickel and chrome. But they have put in place a facility for us to have access to 176 million US as a loan, which sits on their balance sheet until such time as the plant is fully constructed and in working order. Our other project is West Kittlem, and that's an operating mine now. So we've had, as I said, 5,300 ounces platinum this year, and the potential to expand that to multiple operating wash plants in 2019, 2020 and beyond. So Semenovsky is a golden tailings project in Bashkiria, and we refer to that as a less core, not a non-core, but a less core project. And we would be very excited to develop that should the opportunity present itself. So just a bit about PGM investments, platinum and palladium specifically. One thing to note is that they have aspects of both industrial and precious metal demand or components within their demand. So in some cases they can behave like an industrial metal, in more cases they behave like a precious metal. The other thing is that the supply is quite tightly controlled, so you have a limited number of refiners, limited number of producers, which means that you end up with a large amount of metal above ground in above ground stocks, and that tends to act as a kind of a buffer to the usual supply demand fundamentals. And this just shows the 5-year history of platinum, palladium and gold, just because it's interesting. Really, no one would have predicted that platinum would be at such a discount to gold. That's probably historically platinum is at a great premium to gold. So these platinum prices, we would argue, are probably unsustainable. Certainly they're unsustainable for most South African miners. Palladium price then has seen a 163% increase from 2016 all the way to today, and surpassed gold in last week, I think, at 1,240 or so US per ounce. So yeah, strange times, very difficult to predict palladium and platinum prices. Palladium price increase, that bull market really considered to be a function of just standard supply and demand, very good demand and tight supply for palladium, and that's predicted to carry on for the next number of years, even as we bring Mancha Tundra production online. So those images are just a graphic outlay of what the platinum demand generally looks like. But of course, auto catalysts are the chief component, especially in the palladium market. And this statement at the end, the ultimate solution will involve an ever-changing mix of all of the above, driven by technology, legislation, economics, public perception, infrastructure. I mean, nobody sees the diesel and petrol auto catalyst demand going away anytime soon. You know, there's going to be decades more diesel and petrol car engines still to go. Obviously, battery electric vehicles and companies like Tesla get a lot of the headlines. But we would, if there were a company like Tesla operating in, say, the hydrogen fuel cell market, is potentially a better solution, because with battery electric vehicles, well, you still have to produce the electricity somewhere, and if you produce it by renewables, well, then you have a problem with storage. Hydrogen fuel cells are a really neat solution to that, and it's just maybe public perception is not where it should be. Otherwise, the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles would be in a better position. There's about twice as much PGM in a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle as there is in a traditional drivetrain. And South Africa, of course, is the main supplier, or has been, and South Africa being custodian to the unique Bushveld complex where so much PGM output has come from historically. And those miners are really suffering these days, but especially at a platinum price of $850. They're below break even. They don't make their cost of capital, which means that less money will be invested long term. Eventually that has a knock-on effect to the supply and then platinum price. But the future is probably in places like the open pitable deposits like Mogalakwena, which is huge, and Platreef, which is shallow underground, but both of those in the northern limb of the Bushveld. Also open pitable PGM projects backed up with base metal credits, for example, our Monchetundra mine. So meanwhile, on Kola Peninsula, which is a long way from South Africa, we have 28 million tons of ore, 1.9 million ounces, 2 PGE plus gold. The production, as stated in the EPC contract outlined by Sinosteel, is 1.7 million tons per annum, which shows the revenue stream and the major copper and nickel credits also. So the EPC contract is in place at 6-month LIBOR plus 3.5, so that'll be a total of 6.5% or so coupon, and that facility sits on their balance sheet until the mine is in working order. And so it's a 176 made up of 126 for the plant construction plus 50, which is to be allocated as a subcontract back to our subsidiary TJK, and that's for developing the open pits and some of the infrastructure around those 2 open pits. Kola Peninsula is a really good place to work. It's definitely a mining friendly jurisdiction. Most of the infrastructure is along that north-south highway from Murmansk, which comes back down to St. Petersburg. Our project is there at number 6. There's a major Barrick project at number 7, a little bit off the main highway. Also a PGM project. Norilsk refinery is also in the town of Monchegorsk. That's a more close-up of the town of Monchegorsk, showing that Norilsk nickel refinery. Essentially, the town is built around, or was historically built around, that refinery. And our Eurasia office in the city centre. So there's rail to Murmansk, road to St. Petersburg. Norilsk put some PGM refining circuits into that refinery in 2016. So, I mean, in terms of infrastructure, the project is absolutely ideal. You couldn't ask for better. It's a mining town, skilled workforce in the town. So power and rail access to an ice-free port in Murmansk, 136 kilometers. That's just outlining the resource base again, and just the in situ value. Of course, that doesn't take into account operating costs or capital or any other costs, but just to give some indication of the scale of the project, 2.1 billion in situ value against our market capital at the moment, which is of the order of 14 million. So yes, it's definitely a major project, and we would consider it a company maker in the sense that it's well above that 1 million ounces, which is the sort of sweet spot where you attract the right sort of investment and the right sort of attention for your project. We've got 2 million ounces plus those nickel and copper credits. This is an outline of our intended development and our project development. So we are now past the receipt of the mining license. I think we'll have the actual paper certificate in hand. Our people are in Moscow actually today and tomorrow to receive it from Rosnedra. It gets registered, and then we put it into the state register of mining licenses, and that's pretty much the end of the story, which you see began over here in April 2017. Important point is that this is our discovery in that we made the discovery, so it's allocated to our company, and it's gone all the way out to November 2018 PM approval. So final project design next year, and that could be in the form of a BFS. EPC contract then commences in 2019 through 2020, and pre-stripping mining startup at some time in 2020, probably H2 2020, we would hope to have mining startup. In summary, we refer to it as company maker in the sense that it's a type of project you only need to find once. After that, the company is made. Reserves and resources approved, 10-year history, 30 kilometers or so of drilling, projects fully permitted. The one-time, it says there, the one-time payment to Rosnedra is to be finalized. That's actually been finalized now, so that was 20 million rubles with an initial payment of 4 million, which is about £50,000 to be made soon, and the rest then over within 5 years. It's very high palladium to platinum ratio, and we welcome the fact that palladium price reached the all-time high last week. Capital intensity at 1,257 compares very favorably to the South African mines and to other mines in the district. So yeah, that's a summary of Mancha Tundra. West Kitlam is our operating mine, and Ekaterinburg is our Russian headquarters. That was one of the towns where it was a host venue for the World Cup. It's actually that town where the stadium wasn't large enough, and they had to take one of the walls out of the stadium and erect a temporary stand outside the stadium for the people to look in. You might remember it from those news stories. But a very nice place to visit if you have the opportunity. And that's our company HQ, or Russian HQ, with about 15 people employed full time. You see the reserve and resource for West Kitlam is 420,000 ounces. We have our first full season of production at Malaya Sosnovska this year, and that was 5,300 ounces produced through one season. I should say it's an alluvial operation, and it's seasonal in that it needs to have running water to operate the mine. So it's closed for the moment, but we will again start off production at Kluchiki from May 2019. And there is scope to do some work on site throughout the freeze up in the winter. That shows the layout of reserves and resources. So the orange polygons are reserves, and then we proved those up to resources ahead of mining. We started at Malaya Sosnovka in March of this year, and then we moved the plant from Malaya Sosnovka to Kluchiki, that same plant that we saw the picture of earlier, in October of this year. And the plant, we finished out the mining season at Kluchiki, and we'll start again there in Kluchiki next year. So yeah, just also there are a couple of other mining licenses that we have applied for. Two are actually off the scale of this map. They don't show on the map. There's another one which we call the flanks application, which sits pretty much all the way around that mining permit, which is the red outline. And that is under application already. And yeah, under GKZ legislation, if you are awarded a mining right based on your own discovery certificate, you are then automatically allowed to apply for exploration ground directly beside and adjacent to your mining license. So we have a flanks application, as we call it, in process surrounding that whole area. So with those reserves in orange, grey areas as resources, the flanks application I've just talked about, and also another two exploration permits in application. Clearly this is it's going to be a long running mine. This just shows exactly how we do the mining. So that's the wash plant in the top left corner. On the right hand side, you can see waste exiting the trommel. It's been washed. The finer grained material is heavier also. It's passed through the screen and it goes onto a sluice. And we collect the sluice concentrate every morning and then upgrade it at our facility, our laboratory on site to produce these various class sizes of raw platinum, and that's the product of the mine, which we send down the road to a refinery in ECAT, and we pay the refinery to refine it to chemically pure platinum and other PGM and some gold. And we pay them to refine it, and they also buy it off us. So it's a really neat operation. In summary, for West Kitlam, another point to make on this slide is that the mining grades averaging about 1 gram per meter cubed, i.e. 3 to 5 times the reserve grade. And that's due to something that we call the nugget effect, and it's the difficulty of measuring your resource effectively. The problem is that you can't take a large enough sample. You can't take a representative sample from your during your exploration phase. No sample really is representative. So you have the situation where you really don't know the grade until you're actually mining. I mean, the reserves and resource grades are an indication. Where the grade is higher, you expect to have a better mining grade. But it was very exciting for us to have gone into production this year and discovered that the resource grade is understated by a factor of about 3 to 5. So there were some days where we were getting a kilogram returns from the wash plant, and we had up to 6.9, I think, kilograms in one day was the record. So very exciting. But we have planned expansions to multiple wash plants in 2019, doubling output. And they could be owner-operated by Eurasia, or they could be further investment from our contracted party. And that's just a grid as to how those wash plants could be farmed out onto the license. Total optimistic output would be something like 20,000 ounces, with 4 to 5 wash plants operating on site. So Semenovsky, this is a golden tailings project in Bashkiria. We did do a drilling program, some metallurgical analysis in 2016 and 17, and we proved those summary financials. So it's just a direct vat cyanide leach of gold and silver, and it's loaded onto a disposable resin, which is then burnt off in the local smelter. Really simple operation as well, and that's just a graphic showing the old mining location and the tailings dam, which is now just dried out sand with 1 gram of gold per ton of material. So it's a really high grade in terms of tailings projects, and we've had some further interest in that. So it's something that we'll definitely get into if we can come up with a sensible commercial arrangement which doesn't involve excessive dilution to our shareholders. Summary of the company. So mining at West Kitlam ongoing. It's been a really good year for Eurasia, transformational in that it was our first successful mining season, first major mining season, 5,300 ounces produced. And then right at the end of the year, we got our mining permit for Mancha Tundra. So that looks like it'll overtake West Kitlam as the main story next year. EPC contract is in place, so we look forward to building a mine around those 1.9 million ounces, even as the palladium price hits an all-time high. So yeah, certainly exciting times for the company. That picture is actually a picture of an old alluvial mine quite close to West Kitlam. So you can hardly tell where the mining operation was on that picture. It's just left and right of the river that you can see, but even after 10 years the trees have grown back, and the wilderness is almost pristine again, so that's great. We'd encourage you to just check out some of our marketing channels, Vimeo and Twitter and such. Thank you.
Cheers, Keith. Do we have any questions at all?
Other than political risk, what keeps you awake at night? Because you seem to be doing, everything's going in the right direction, but it's still Russia.
Yeah, no, it has never been a problem for us, really. I think it's overstated, and people are influenced by what they hear in the media, and we have never had a problem. Our licensing is more or less gone on key, and where we have people who are very good at pushing things along when they need to, and they have direct communication with the people in the various offices, so they're able to pick up the phone and keep it moving along. But you know, there has never been any kind of concern with corruption or such. None of that kind of drama, I'm afraid. Much less dull.
Any other questions? It's the most exercise I've had all week. Thank you.
You said that you own 80% of Monte Tundra.
Yeah.
Who owns you the 20%, and do they have any effect on your plans for producing a mine?
No, it's an investment house, and they're kind of a silent shareholder. Yeah, we'll hold discussions with them, but no, there's no direct effect as such.
Any other questions?
Yes, back to the working in Russia. What local liaison people do you have there to actually make things work and go your way, and how up in the organisation does that go?
Yeah, we just have well, director of the local company, background in law, used to be a lawyer. Just people who are very familiar with the mining licensing and the permitting process, and who can actively lobby where necessary. And I have good friendly relationships with the people at local level, and are able to get things done at Moscow or state, federal level when necessary. So we don't employ any consultants or such, just our own people in-house who have years of experience doing this.
Anyone else? I know Keith's going to stay around afterwards for a drink.
Sure,
or two.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you have any questions after the event, please do come and ask. Thank you.
Thanks.